All right, so we're going to talk about factoring out the greatest common factor. Let's just take an example of, say, 30x squared plus 15x minus, let's just say, 10. When you're looking to factor out a greatest common factor, you look at each individual term. Now you notice I'm grouping the sign with it because I'm going to look at the first one as a positive, because it's an implied positive in front, positive 30x squared. The second term is a positive 15x, and the third term is a negative 10. I look at everything. Now, only two of the three terms have a variable or the x in it, so we can eliminate x as a common factor. But then we look at the numbers, 30, positive 30, positive 15, and negative 10. Well, they actually all have in common a positive 5. So when we go to factor out the greatest common factor, we're going to divide that number that they have in common out of each one of these individually. So we will actually have 30x squared divided by 5 plus 15x divided by 5 plus a negative 10 divided by 5. You notice that I do the plus. I don't really think in terms of subtraction. I always think that we're adding negative numbers because that makes your life easier so you don't mess up signs. So when we do this math, well, the first thing you have to think of is, okay, well, if I'm dividing by 5 and I don't want to change the equation, the opposite of division is multiplication. So you have to do 5 times, and then just do the math. 30 divided by 5 gives you a 6x squared, plus 15 divided by 5 gives you a 3x. Now, negative 10 divided by 5 actually will give you a negative 2. Now you have factored out the greatest common factor, and you're feeling pretty good about life. All right, so we're going to look at a little bit more of a difficult one. Let's just say 9x cubed y cubed plus 27x squared y to the fourth minus 30x y. Now it's going to be the same procedure to factor out the greatest common factor. You're simply going to look at your positive 9x cubed, your positive 27x squared y to the fourth, and your negative 30xy. And you're going to divide out everything that each one of those has in common. So let's go ahead and write 9x cubed y cubed plus 27x squared y to the fourth plus a negative 30xy. Did my adding a negative number so I make sure I don't mess up my signs. Now I know I'm going to have to divide each one of these by whatever they all have in common. Once I'm going to go through, I'm going to figure that out. I'm going to have to actually multiply whatever I'm dividing by to get my actual factors. So now let's look. We have 9, let's look at the numbers first. 9, 27, and negative 30. Well, they all have a factor of 3. So we can divide 3 out of each one of these. Now, let's just go to the very next one. X cubed, x squared, and x. The only thing that they have is an x. So you can divide out an x in each one of these. Okay, so we now know that it has a 3 and an x. Each one of these has a 3 and an x in common. Now let's look at the y. We have a y cubed, a y to the fourth, and a y. Well, they only have, each of them has only one y in it, so we can divide out a y. Now, whatever I'm dividing by is going to be on the outside of my parentheses here because I don't want to change my original equation up here. We want to keep it the same. So if we're dividing, we have to do the opposite, which is multiplying. Now let's do the math. 9 divided by 3 gives me 3. X cubed divided by x is going to give me an x squared. Y cubed divided by y is going to give me a y, plus 27 divided by 3 is 9. X squared divided by x is x. Y to the fourth divided by y is y cubed. Now, don't write the plus a negative number. Just go ahead and write minus, even though you should see it as a plus a negative number. Negative 30 divided by 3 is just a negative 10. X divided by x is just 1, so we don't need to write it. And y divided by y is just 1. We don't need to divide it. So even though this equation right here is considerably more difficult than what we started with right at first, it still factors by the exact same procedure. So 9x cubed y cubed plus 27x squared y to the fourth minus 30xy will actually factor to 3xy times 3x squared y plus 9xy cubed minus 10.